Okay, let's just tear down a massive Silicon Valley myth right out of the gate. For the last decade, there's been this pervasive idea, basically a golden rule in tech expansion, that if you just drop smartphones and internet apps into emerging markets, boom, it automatically equals participation in the digital economy. We tend to think, if we build it and they can download it, they're obviously going to use it. But a fascinating wave of new research reveals that this assumption is, well, it's completely flawed.
So here is the billion-dollar question that the biggest tech giants are literally getting wrong as we speak. If you give an emerging market internet access and an app, why doesn't everyone adopt it? Today, we are diving into this explainer to look at two groundbreaking studies. One tracks street food vendors in Indonesia, and the other looks at digital finance users across Malaysia and Indonesia. And these sources are going to show us exactly why access absolutely does not equal adoption, and what hidden forces are actually driving the digital divide.
Let's contrast that standard Silicon Valley playbook with the stark reality on the ground. The traditional model assumes that a mobile phone plus Wi-Fi equals digital inclusion. Simple, right? But the reality is way more complex. It turns out that deep, invisible barriers, things like spatial inequality, lack of physical infrastructure, and even the platform algorithms themselves, actually dictate who gets to play in the modern digital economy.
Let's kick things off with part one, the geographic trap.
To really understand these hidden barriers, we have to look at a fascinating 2026 study of over 300 street food vendors using platforms like GoFood and GrabFood in Surakarta, Indonesia. This brilliantly illustrates our geographic playing field. You can see this clear spatial divide between the vendors operating right in the bustling central business district and those who are pushed all the way out to the urban fringe. Researchers found that your physical location is literally one of the strongest predictors of digital success, completely independent of how tech-savvy you actually are.
And the contrast is wild. Location starkly dictates your entire business structure. In the city center, vendors are often selling super popular dishes from semi-permanent stalls, they've got multiple staff, and they enjoy massive adoption of delivery platforms. Now contrast that with the urban fringe. These vendors are typically solo, selling simple, low-cost meals from pushcarts. Because the city center has better physical infrastructure and is closer to delivery hubs, those central vendors get a massive, unfair digital advantage. But wait, it gets crazier. Because it's not just about roads and cell towers. The bias is actually baked into the code itself. This introduces a concept called algorithmic invisibility. This happens when platform algorithms actively deprioritize users in peripheral areas. It effectively hides them from customers, regardless of how good their digital skills are. So, the crucial takeaway here, having a smartphone doesn't mean a thing if you suffer from algorithmic invisibility. Because these delivery ops systematically favor the logistics and density of the city center, vendors out on the fringe are essentially hidden ghosts in the machine. Which brings us to our second piece of the puzzle. Financial resilience drives adoption. Because geography is only half the story, right? Let's zoom out to a massive new fintech study of 1,150 users across Malaysia and Indonesia to look at the behavioral side. Researchers discovered that simply knowing how to use an app doesn't automatically trigger you to use it long term. Instead, a user's financial resiliency is the secret conversion mechanism. This is basically your financial shock absorber, your capacity to withstand shocks, maintain cash flow, and keep participating in the economy even when things get highly uncertain. Think of the conversion path like a three-step staircase. First, an individual learns the digital capabilities, how to use the tool. But they don't just jump straight to sustained everyday engagement. No, they must first convert that knowledge into financial resilience. They have to know how to plan budgets, manage their money, and weather financial shocks. Only when that resilience is locked in will they actually trust and continuously engage with a fintech platform. Without that crucial middle step, the tech is just abandoned the very second a financial shock hits. Okay, moving on to part 3, and this one is a real head-scratcher. The AI literacy paradox. Prepare to have your assumptions flipped here. We generally assume that the more you know about a piece of technology, the more likely you are to use it, right? Well, let's compare users in Malaysia, which has a very strong regulatory framework, with users in Indonesia, where digital governance is a bit more fragmented. In Malaysia, having high AI literacy had a totally neutral effect on adoption. But in Indonesia's weaker regulatory environment, having high AI literacy actually decreased a user's likelihood of adopting digital finance apps. No way, right? Well, the researchers hit the nail on the head. They noted that greater awareness of AI systems actually heightens a user's perceived algorithmic opacity and digital risk. Think about what that actually means. When smart, highly literate users understand exactly how these AI algorithms work, and they know they're operating in a sort of unregulated Wild West without strong consumer protections, they look at the risk of bias and data misuse, and they wisely choose to just opt out entirely. So, instead of using these apps to proactively grow their wealth, highly AI literate users in weakly regulated markets actually use their knowledge defensively. They employ their financial resilience merely to survive the system, basically using it as a coping mechanism against uncertainty. Whereas in a strong regulatory environment like Malaysia, playing defense like that just isn't as necessary. So, how do we fix this? Let's look at part 4, rewriting the global playbook. If we want true digital inclusion, we absolutely have to toss out the old assumptions. The new global playbook must go way beyond just handing out internet access. First, we have to fix physical infrastructure inequalities so the urban fringes aren't left behind. Second, we need to demand algorithmic transparency so platforms stop secretly deprioritizing vulnerable users. Third, tech companies need to actively foster financial resilience by building genuine human-centered features like embedded microsavings directly into the apps. And finally, governments absolutely must strengthen consumer protection because, as we've seen, without trust, tech literacy actually drives smart users away. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Are these tech platforms actually going to evolve to build true financial resilience into their very design? Or are their algorithms just going to keep leaving the most vulnerable folks completely invisible? As we push further and further into an AI-mediated future, understanding these hidden barriers isn't just some academic exercise. It's the absolute key to genuine global inclusion. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, always keep questioning the algorithms around you.